You're listening to On the Path with Dr. Charlie Keil, Zach Rudis, and Jonny G.
And I thought we'd start today with a quote from Gandhi. If we are to reach real peace in this world, and if we are to carry on a real war against war, we shall have to begin with children. And if they will grow up in their natural innocence, we won't have to struggle, we won't have to pass fruitless, idle resolutions, but we shall go from love to love and peace to peace until, at last, all the corners of the world are covered with that peace and love for which, consciously or unconsciously, the whole world is hungering. Isn't that amazing?
The whole world is what?
Hungering.
Hungering.
Everybody's hungry for peace and for love and for an easy, innocent existence, which is what I think we had with Eden, equality, eternity, essence. We had an easy existence. Everybody was easily pleased with what was going on. There was no division of labor. Everybody knew what the tools of production were. Everybody knew what everybody else knew. And children could pick it up as quickly as they possibly could. 6 and 7 and 8-year-old kids were considered to be pretty much adult in a lot of societies over the years. And now the question is, I think, can you somehow open up education and intensify it at the same time so that the children coming up are not coming up in with anxiety, depression, fears of all kinds of nuclear war, et cetera, all the fears that have been piled one on top of another. And now the Fearmeister himself is, just comes up with new fears every day. We have to bring them up exactly the opposite from what's happening now. Raised on screens, raised on, anxiety and what will happen next, and will mom and dad, still be here tomorrow, or are they both going off to work, or now they're both working at home. Maybe we could keep that plus going. We have to look at where we're at. What do we do with who we are, where we are in our localities to maximize maintenance of innocence, maintenance of sincerity, all those I can't help thinking of my granddaughter Lily and, your first music lesson with her and her "I love you, Johnny." Just, that declaration of admiration, respect, love, peace. We're having a wonderful time. There's no reason why we can't be having a wonderful time all the time with our kids and change the world to make it safe for the innocence of children, that they don't have to lose this innocence to become adults, to become real human beings. But every culture has this expectation of growth to maturation, and that the men become tougher or harder or more manly, and the women will become more womanly and more nurturant and warm, and the gender styles will be achieved or exaggerated or better than ever, or some kind of improvement on childhood. What about remaining as childish as we can, keep making the world safe for child consciousness, for child innocence? And as we get wiser, we get older, we get more experience, a whole lot of things will be added to that. But you don't have to erase your inner child or your childish apprehension, your childish awe of nature.
Totally
all these
agree.
things that kids have that are just wonderful, and that's why we like to be with them, because they're going to surprise us with some, oh my goodness, this child has just discovered the moon, or the moon has phases, or all that wonderment and playfulness. Let's play. Can we play this, play that?
This makes me think of my Chinese students.
Mm-hmm.
who I teach English to, the word play. I ask an 8-year-old, "What did you do today?" Maybe they say, I played with a toy, I played with my friend, I played with my sister." You ask a 12-year-old, okay, it's still play. You ask a 15-year-old, "What did you do today?" A 15-year-old generally will not tell you,
Yeah.
"I played."
Mhm.
Play quickly gets relegated to this.
Right.
It's in the childhood pile,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want that anymore because I'm 15 years old, and I'm going to be an adult, and adults don't play.
Right.
Adults play music. Adults play sports,
You hope.
but that's it.
Yeah.
Play is confined to this
Mm-hmm.
little thing that we're going to give 45 minutes to, and then we go back to normal life where there is no play for adults.
What
Right.
happens with a 16-year-old kid that makes them lose that quote-unquote innocence and decide that play is not for them anymore?
Well, you're asked to make choices about what will you be when you grow up. People are asking you when you're 4, 5, 6, and 7. And by the time you're 14, 15, and 17, it's a serious question. You've got to be somebody doing something at an expert level or with a high skill level, or this specialization is encouraged, and we're looking for what will you become, not
I
all
find
the,
that's worse in other cultures often.
yeah.
My experience in the European system, by like 6th grade in a lot of countries, you pretty much have to be headed on a path.
Mm-hmm.
When you're 12, 13 years old, you're already being forced to decide if you're going to work in the sciences or the humanities, for example.
Right.
At least in America, we still have I think it's an imperfect model, but the liberal arts concept at its best at least offers us the possibility to sample.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm totally signed on to the liberal arts education. There's a lot of problems with it, but it at least makes some base attempt to foster curiosity in different disciplines.
Mm-hmm. And the proliferation of disciplines gives you the feeling of a cornucopia, of plentiful ways to learn, to know. So for me, the knowing part is always secondary to being in the moment, being who you are, becoming more of who you are. I love Thelonious Monk's. So I think that he was the one who said the genius is the one who is most himself or herself.
I like that.
If you can find out who you are through all these learning processes, we're really getting somewhere. But unfortunately, the learning processes, as we were talking about it last time, is very much lay it on them. Here's what you have to be a musician. Here's what you must know to be an historian. Here are the basic principles of grammar and rhetoric and so on if you're going to be a writer. And they get to the mechanics of it too quick, and instead of saying just, hey, write the way you talk, or dance the way you hear the music, or relate one process to another and help kids get good at all these different processes, then things will emerge. But there's some kind of faith that you need to have that this emergence or this pulling out that's true education, your educare, to pull out from the person you're guiding or educating. Can you pull out from them what is most self? How can the phrase I find myself using over and over again is self-determination of peoples and persons. Are you a self-determining agent in the world? And can you help little kids feel that confidence of self-determination? I'm becoming more me every day. Because if you can find that seed or beginning of a process that they want to be in, and help it along, put a little stick on the hoop and keep that hoop rolling. That's the way I felt about some kids who I thought were sure to become fully fully expressed adults is they just got confidence. Where they got it from, I don't know, but they have the confidence to keep at a drumming pattern when other people give up, or, oh, I'll never get this, or this is too much pressure here, everybody's looking at me, or, you know what I mean? There's so many ways to turn somebody off, and I'm still searching for the surefire ways to turn kids on.
That happened to me
What happened to you?
with music.
Yeah.
What you just said, that not having that confidence to keep holding that beat down
Mm-hmm.
when it feels difficult. There's times where John plays a show and he says, "Yo, come play cowbell." And I don't even have the confidence to hold down a dun 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 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what age that happened to me at, but it's a curious thing, and it inhibits much more than playing cowbell.
Mm-hmm.
It leaks into everything.
Yeah. Well, this the phrase that comes to my mind from Gertrude Stein is a dog born with its confidence gone. And you know, dogs are often kind of where do I go next, or who do I wag my tail at next, or, you know, where's the action, who can I relate to, as if they can't find a master or a leader of the pack or whatever, they're lost. You know, I'm in trouble if I don't have a guide or a model or some mother goose to imprint on. What's a gosling going to do if there's no mother goose to imprint on? So I see what we do from 0 to 8 with little kids as helping to facilitate imprinting or mimesis, or doing something that you like seeing Johnny do, or you do, or me do, that they want to do what we're doing, and we just help them to do it and to keep telling them that they can make their own. I got one feedback from a young drummer who was 6 years old, and I got in touch with him when he was 18 or 19. I guess he was getting out of college. And he sent me a letter that said the single most important thing that I got from 6 after-school sessions at Salisbury Central was that we could make our own music. That we could do it. We could dance, make up a dance. We could make up a song. We could make it up as we go along. And that thought had never entered his mind before, that he could be the creator of his own dance, his own song, his own music. And that was big news for him at 6, I guess. I didn't even know I was doing that, saying that, or implying that you could make your own. But I think that's the key thing we have to keep telling each other, right? You're just thinking about, can I do a children's album? Can I make it connect, or how do I do that? Everybody is capable of doing exactly what they want to do. If they really want to do it, they'll find a way to get it done. And
if they were encouraged,
yeah,
and
given permission to be all you can be, to do it for yourself. DIY is nobody can do it for you.
Charlie has a slogan where he says, "Untune nobody."
I got that from Emerson. And it wasn't a big deal for Emerson. He just, tossed that off in one of his self-reliance essays.
Did he use those words?
Yeah, those 2 words, untune nobody.
Untune nobody.
Which is a double negative, nobody. Everybody's got a body. Untune nobody. You can spend a little time with untune nobody. And really, it's just, what do you want to do? And the other great text and I'm so sad that David Graeber died September 2nd. I'm really feeling that every single day now, that this man who wrote "What's the Point If We Can't Have Fun?" an article in the Baffler, 2014, I guess it was. It's a pearl, just a gem of an article about how play is the principle not just of all mammals, not just the otters and the humans, but baby kittens, baby puppies, baby
Pigs.
pigs. They're all playful. There's play to be had in the whole mammal world. That's how you get off the breast and into the world, is play. And mock fighting and rough and tumble play and signals that signal this is not aggression, this is play. I'm going to bite you, but it's going to be fun. Those signals, complicated signals that a husky dog can send to a hungry polar bear. You know the story about the tethered husky? This dog is tethered down and can't run, and a big polar bear is coming up, and it's that season when those polar bears are hungry and they're looking for seals or, stray dogs or whatever. And this husky gets down on all fours and shows its neck and wags its tail and lets its tongue out and sort of says, can we have some fun? And the polar bear goes for it.
Wow.
Before you know it, they're pawing each other and
That's
playing. He gives the husky gives all the play signals and submission signals. I want to play, and the polar bear can't resist because it's a small, furry creature. It's suddenly that dog has turned itself into a polar bear cub, and a friendly one, and a playful one, and they tussle for 5 or 10 minutes, and the polar bear walks off. I'll find a meal somewhere else.
I was with a friend this past week who has a dog about 1.5 years old, sort of not well trained yet, sort of still getting his legs under him, and he makes a play date with his neighbor and the neighbor's dog. Neighbor's dog's considerably smaller. The owner was maybe kind of a nervous middle-aged woman, and when the dogs start playing, my friend's dog immediately takes a dominant role. The woman's dog gets in a submissive pose, gets on its back, belly up, and the woman loses it. She cuts the play date. She couldn't deal with dogs being dogs.
Yeah.
She misread the situation.
Yeah.
She misread what you're talking about. The
Right.
dogs know the signals.
Yeah.
They know how to show each other, I'm not actually going to bite your neck off.
Yep.
But a lot of us are not getting that memo somehow.
So humans have lost a lot of good mammal instincts are in us and could be imprinted out of us or mimicist out of us. You mimic the right kinds of behaviors of your fellow creatures, and this path of Gandhi's love and peace and innocence, it's obtainable. It's in our resource kit. It's in our instinctual guts, so to speak, to be able to do this. And it's a sequence thing. That's the other thing that I think I'm terribly ignorant about, is what's the right time or time frame? During what months between 0 and 18 months old do kids most want to be in sync? I got this one example from Lily of, 10 months, I'm there with the ooey, ooh, right on it. 14 months, not so interested in being in sync. If we don't find the natural moment to sort of have fun doing this or have fun doing that, I think you may miss a whole track, a whole path, a whole avenue of expression may get sort of closed down and have to be reopened in your teenage years when you're in rebellion, or there are many, many times in your life when you can be open to a path, open to a process, a way of swinging, a way of grooving, a way of writing, a way of doing calligraphy. Hey, I've got this messy handwriting at 14. I'm going to change that to have the style that everybody will look at and say, wow, that's Ralph's signature. Wow, look at that. He's got that. It's simple, but it's got a style to it. Anybody can intend that, can go for it anytime. But if you get the the cues, the possibility, the mimesis opportunity from good guides, in theory at least, and I should hope in practice, because it's all practice and practice and practice. In theory, you should be able to develop your own way of writing, your way of singing. When did you first start getting interested in doing falsetto singing? Can you remember when that was a new thing for you?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't know. Singing, obviously, you sing in elementary school, and then in high school, we sang in the doo-wop groups and stuff. I do not remember when falsetto became a thing.
Sometime after your voice changed.
Yeah, right. That's a good question.
Why do you
Maybe
ask
college.
that specifically?
It just popped into my mind as, I think you were imitating Prince or imitating Michael Jackson, or, there's a lot of Marvin Gaye. There's a lot of great falsetto singing that goes on in the Afro-American world. And I heard it in Yoruba land, and that's when I really realized that high pitches were not feminine. We have kind of, from Western culture, bourgeois culture, you have sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses. But for most of mankind, and even in the West up until a century and a half ago or something like that, all these parts were singable by anybody. Men could sing soprano parts in choirs in the USA, in church. And it was expected that every men and women would sing bass and tenor and alto and soprano parts interchangeably if they wanted to. There was no gender rules about sopranos, altos, contraltos, or, this kind of hierarchy of frequencies. It was all, those were four parts, and guys could sing soprano parts 2 octaves lower or whatever. It was a much richer and more open society with fewer rules and expectations about all these things. So to keep thinking about Gandhi's quote about statement about innocence and maintaining it, an awful lot of things have been constructed to constrain and limit people's imaginations and performativity.
That maps onto what you just said about vocal registers.
Yeah.
We're boxing people in.
Yep. You have this kind of a voice. Well, nobody told Ima Sumac, or nobody told some of these singers who have incredible ranges. I'm not sure that this is a gift in your genes. It's you got that. I think that's why I asked you the question about falsetto, because you've gotten better and better at it. You can do it with your guitar in the upper register and so on. You can match your guitar. These skills, you found your way into them because you got on a path. You had a kind of direction from early childhood on. I remember a time when you and I and Raven were in the room, and I said, how come you two guys are good at set drumming and there are a whole bunch of other people in high school aren't? And you looked at each other and said something, what, do you have a TV in your house? And you both somehow came up quickly to the conclusion that not having a TV around and getting into drumming were somehow in a complementary distribution. No TV, more time to drum. And
yeah, you could look at a pie chart of how kids spend their time. And
I wasted so much of my childhood watching television.
Yeah. So it's not even just a distraction thing, but a time thing.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm reminded of a Pema Chodron book you lent me years ago, where she says to always remain a child of illusion.
Mm-hmm.
That sense of wonderment you mentioned.
Yeah. Yep.
Just kind of always looking at the world with wide eyes. And
did you say illusion?
Yep.
Yep.
Does illusion in English also mean like hope?
Yeah, that it's imaginary. This is not real. But Pema's use of it is keep your sense of
Wonderment.
awe, and I got to think about illusion because it does have these double meanings.
In Spanish, it's hope, or it's like anticipation, something.
Yeah. We had a T-shirt in Buffalo. Mike Morgulis had this big buffalo, and then it said, "Buffalo, city of no illusions. We are, we're tough. We're not to be deceived or jerked around. We don't have illusions." And then the Spanish one was Buffalo, city sin ilusiones. Without hope, without mystification, no, unmystified, unawed. We're real practical here.
And
So play with it. You play with words, and you notice how they get reversed. Illusion can be a positive thing, the glorious illusion, and you come and fulfill it anyway, or it can be, it goes phases into delusional. Illusions become delusional.
it makes me think of the word ambitious, which in English often has a positive connotation, more often than not.
Yeah.
They're really ambitious. John's very ambitious. He's going out and conquering the world. And in Spanish, it's more often viewed as a negative trait.
Right.
That person's like in it for themselves. They're trying to take a bigger piece of the pie from us.
Right.
Yeah. I think Pema was saying just to maintain that passion for the inexhaustible possibilities in life. Just you can go anywhere. You can be interested by anything.
Lust for life. Dun, 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 dun.
So not losing that innocence, like Charlie said. I was watching an interview with Harmony Korine. He's a filmmaker, pretty famous, successful filmmaker. When he was in high school, all he wanted to do was make movies. It was just his passion. And he had one teacher pull him aside and say, "Listen, that thing you wrote for class was fantastic. That was, do you want to make it a movie? If I got you a little bit of money, could you make this into a movie?" And she somehow went to the school board. He said, "Oh, of course." She went to the school board and got like $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
And he made it into a film, and that started him on his career path. If that one little thing hadn't happened, he hadn't been pulled aside by that one supportive mentor figure in his life. Now look at him, he's a hugely successful filmmaker.
Right.
So we need to, like we said yesterday, get out of kids' way, let them blossom, and just support them on their path to finding what they're interested in and what they want to express.
Facilitate.
Yep.
Accompany.
We're composters.
Nurture.
We're fertilizers of the seed is so important. Back to the Gandhi quote. I mean, what comes first? The source, the seed, the first sound you get on a recorded piece of music. It all stems from there. So if you get a bad first take or bad guitar sound, you can't polish a turd. You can't fix that. But if that initial seed is strong, that's your foundation. That's everything.
Yeah.
What were you saying after our last session? You talked about starting with getting the first note right.
Oh, right. The story of Freddie Green and Red Mitchell. Red Mitchell, the bassist. When I got him on the phone, we were on for about an hour and a half of, I had to change tapes in the little cassette recorder. And he had he'd prepared this thing because he'd been asking the same questions about groove that I'd been asking, only he got to ask Freddie Green of the Basie Band and, a whole lot of people that he was in a group opposite, trading sets in Sweden or whatever. And he sat down with Freddie Green and said, "Freddie, you've played more swinging quarter notes, chink, 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 on your rhythm guitar than any human being alive. How do you do that? How do you do that night after night? What's the trick? How do you maintain that groove feeling?" He says, "Well, you got to get the first note right." And Red Mitchell says, "You mean of every measure?" No, of the whole tune, man. Yeah. If you get the first note right, you got a shot at the second. And it wasn't until yesterday when I was sort of looking at the little poem I'd written, I said, oh, yeah, between the first note and the second note is where the groove starts, right? Or the tempo or the feel. Ting, 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 ting. That's where we're going to be for the rest of the tune. And the band is going to come in a little behind that. Everybody I've talked to about the Basie band has trouble, including a bassist. What was his name? No,
So when you say Basie, you're talking about Count Basie?
Yeah. And I talked to the one of the bass player who was with Basie when I first encountered the band at age 18 or whatever. And he was with the band for 10, 12 years. Great big burly guy. He later retired from music and was employed at IBM over in Poughkeepsie. And I got him on the phone and I asked him, the questions about where does the groove come from. And we got to this place where he was saying things that didn't make any sense, and he realized it. He said, you got to call me back. I have to think this through. We had these discussions on the bus, and it was something about the rhythm section feeling laid back and behind the beat, and that the band would be behind that they would be phrasing behind the beat of the bass, guitar, and drummer. And he said, this in theory should make us slow up pretty quickly. We'd be slowing up, but it doesn't. We're all following this bouncing ball of the feel of the Basie band, in which the rhythm section is relaxed and a little behind this felt pulse, and then the band is a little behind that, and yet we keep the tempo. So when Freddie Green says first note, and then you got a good shot at the second, it's as if he's determining that space, the discrepancy, the participatory discrepancies are going to be this far and never farther between this first note and this second note. We got the tempo and we got a groove, and then the band relates to that somehow. And the bass player could never quite explain it to me, but neither could somebody else. I mean, it's sort of, that's the mystery. That's the Basie band.
When I asked you about that, about getting that first note right, what I was trying to remember was what you said after, which was then you have a shot at the second, and that was kind of the thread I was trying to find, because we were talking about children,
right?
And if we can kind of like allow them to get the first note right,
yeah,
like kind of giving them a shot.
Yep.
Instead of taking away the shot by saying, like, here, sit in front of the TV, or here's an iPad, shut up.
No, it's a little metaphor for life. If you can find the place where the kid wants to go somehow and help him get there, it'll kind of take care of itself. At a certain point, I stop worrying about one child or another, because I can see that they've already got a capacity for grooving, for playing with other people, for supporting somebody else's instrumental expression or whatever, or their song. If there's a little bit of teamwork happening and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but we need to get more over time, I hope, with lots of toddler jams and lots of different daycare centers and play care centers get started. We should be able to figure this out, accumulate wisdom about how do you spot that guy on the TED Talks dancer. How did she get to be 8 before anybody said this kid is really getting bored or itchy or a problem in school? That dancing propensity should have been spotted at age 4, 5, or 6. I can remember having that young man who's now a kind of a flaming gay performer. When he came into the drumming class at Salisbury Central, I said, "Wow, you seem to want to be just a dancer, right? You don't want to drum?" No, he said, "I don't need drumming. I just need you. But I like what you're doing." He was there already as a performer before he ever got to the class.
This
And
is
there was one.
Vamilo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Peter Pierce and I were sitting out there with another kid. I can't remember his name now. And he came up to he'd been in the drumming class and he'd been sort of half interested and then getting bored and then interested again. And he was good at picking things up. And he said, "How do you like this?" And he goes, bum, 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 ba, bum, bum, ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, bum, ba, bum. Yeah, that's great. That's a great little lick. I said, it made me think immediately of Louis Armstrong and Bing Crosby in High Society, the movie. In Bangkok, they all liked to rock. It was a song, and it was a bump, 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 ba-dum, bump, ba-dum, boom, and it cues up that last note on another drum. And we did that for about a half an hour after the drumming class. We were waiting for his dad to pick him up. And I said, this is one of those, moments that you're both talking about of where's that seed? It's been planted. He's got this lick, and he thinks it's his own. He never seen Bing Crosby and Louis Armstrong in the movie High Society, or maybe he did, learned it from the TV. Who knows? But he had this thing that he could do, and he was proud of it as his thing. I'm not going to tell him it reminded me of this, because rhythms are rhythms, and they're there for everybody and for all time. They're like platonic forms that just can be filled by any person who wants to do it.
I'm thinking of music, to come back to the Gandhi thing, and natural innocence. It occurred to me while I was listening to you speak that life changes, it complexifies as we get older. We pick up responsibility after responsibility. But maybe music is actually the most obvious vector for continuity of natural innocence.
Mm-hmm.
You can play dun 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 dun, dun at 5 years old, or 25 or 50 or 100.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to become more complicated than it needs to be.
It's timeless.
It's timeless.
Yep. And it resonates with each person differently. It immediately reminded me of a 50s movie that I'd seen.
It reminded me of something else when you did it.
Did it remind you of Lust for Life by Iggy Pop? Bump, 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 bump.
Well, we were talking about this the other day. And
yesterday we were singing Iggy Pop, that song, and what compared it to what?
I likened it to that song, Are You Gonna Be My Girl by Jet.
Right.
1, 2, 3.
And I thought he was singing Lust for Life, which he just sang 15 minutes ago on the podcast. It's a very rhythm is just in us. It's nobody owns dun 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 dun, you know?
Right.
Until you get sued for it.
No, you can't be sued for it. Groove, this is at least established in the copyright law that I know anything about. You can't copyright a bass line, a basic simple dun dun da 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 dun 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 dee dee dee. That can be Monk's Friday the 13th, or it can be, it's Roz called it the world's oldest bass line. And so these things are like,
sounds
they're
like 16
prototypes.
Tons,
16 tons.
Very, it's just
tons, and what do you get?
Yep.
Right.
Another day.
And that 16 tons, and what do you get, is a little bit like bump, 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 right? I mean, these kind of licks are prototype, archetype seeds of rhythm that have been there for time immemorial, I guess.
It's all the same stuff.
So you can't copyright that. You can't patent it. You can't trademark it. It belongs to everybody. Bass lines, simple bass lines, ground basses, as Bach used them or whatever, you can't copyright, and you can't copyright a riff or a little rhythmic trick or whatever.
The song Blurred Lines, Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams got taken for a lot of money, millions of dollars, by the estate of Marvin Gaye for plagiarism when some indications say it was anything but. Say modified. It's inspired by.
Right.
We're at a point apparently in copyright law where inspired by can expose you to risk.
Well, see, this is capitalism desperately trying to hang on to property. This is a piece of property. This is a product. This is copyrightable, trademarkable, profitable. And I think it's crazy to think that music could ever be property, could ever be a product, could ever be, so I've been arguing the position. I once argued it with Bruno Nettel, a very distinguished ethnomusicologist with lots of books to his credit, and kind of the lead professor at Champaign-Urbana for turning out ethnomusicology graduate students. We were at a meeting, and I was arguing, look, music is too wonderful to be owned by anybody. It is just a big flow of melodies and harmonies and rhythms and sounds and textures, and all this wonderful stuff. And it flows along, and you try to chop it up and turn it into kielbasa or sausage or some product. Doesn't make any sense. It's not objectified or turned into a product by any primitive people that I've ever heard of. It only happens to be a fixed thing in quartz in Japan, or high culture in urban civilizations have a certain form that shouldn't be messed with or whatever. And of course, bourgeois society says this symphony is the symphony.
How long has music even been ownable?
Only a few centuries. Only when you write it down. Only when you westernize it and say it's got this chord progression and that chord progression. 99.9% of the world's musicking over the ages and across all cultures doesn't have music as product, object, for sale, recordable. Recordings create objects. 45s, 33s, CDs.
Yeah, it's
and now it just kind of evaporated. Music as object in the high tech world.
Well, now
PDF.
Now we're being sold
MP3. What? Where is it?
We're being sold infinitely replicable things.
Say that again.
We're being sold infinitely replicable things.
Yeah.
It used to be. I mean, some people are still buy the vinyl because it's a vinyl. It's an object.
Yeah.
And I like Le Special, and I like their artwork that they have for this, and it's a collector's thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's fading.
They can sell you an MP3 for 99 cents 7 million times.
Right.
It's still the same file.
Yep. And it's been a contested thing now for 20 years. When was the first music for free thing? And
like Napster?
Yeah, it went on for a couple of years before they stopped it, right?
I used Napster in 7th grade-ish. So I'd say like mid-90s, maybe like 1995 was probably even early illegal downloading of music.
Yep. But do you see where now what we started with children in their innocence and wanting to have them own their own songs, make their own songs, feel like they can create as soon as they can breathe. You can, as soon as you know how to sing a little bit, you make up your own songs, and a lot of kids do. And then by the time they're 14 or 15, and mothers make up songs for their kids all over the world. Original lullabies, original teasing songs, or get you to eat your oatmeal songs, or you know what I mean? Songs are being generated by girls and women who then poo-poo it and say, or other people poo-poo it and say, or the kids say, I don't want to hear that song again, Mom. That's what you used to sing to me when I was 7 and 8, and now I'm 14. Or
no more play.
Yeah, the play, putting play behind you, and inventiveness and creativity is a pervasive thing. I don't know why, because and that's why that Graeber article, what's the point if we can't have fun? And where he takes it out to the spiraling galaxies, he says the entire universe is having fun. So, spiraling. Why? What? There are 9 different kinds of spirals, and maybe a 10th that a galaxy can take. It's pinwheel kind of a thing, or inner circles of clouds, of stars. I mean, the whole universe is spinning and grooving, and from that point of view, expanding. Yeah, but how, man? It's expanding in spirals and different kinds of forces at work throughout the universe, having fun. And then he brings it back to 2 Chinese philosophers looking at fishes in a stream and what the minnows are doing. And it seems like they're not looking for food. It seems like they're kind of chasing each other. I think they're playing, I think. And then they start having philosophical questions and answers about the fish. Are they happy? Or, I can't remember what the little paradox is inside it. But Graeber takes it from the inchworm. Why is the inchworm inching? Why does it swing on a little, tiny thread? And then, boop, land on the next thing, and then it swings and goes to the next plant. And he and a friend are just watching the inchworm go around with the swinging thing, and then, whoop, onto the next plant. And it doesn't seem to have, it's not a mating dance. It's not, what's its purpose? Why is the inchworm inching and swinging and going to the plant to plant?
Why is the crow sliding down the snowy roof and then hopping back up to do it again?
Right.
Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that. I want to.
Or why is the cockatoo bouncing up and down on the back of the couch when it's listening to Thriller? Or
Yeah.
Why does the cat find...
You're thinking about Snowball dancing. Right. Every one of these things seems like a miracle at first. And then you say, wait a minute. I've seen blue herons do, I'm making that up. But Graeber was not the first person to think of this, but Hudson, in The Naturalist in La Plata, says that the common glad impulse is in every creature. The amoeba.
The what impulse?
The common glad impulse.
Common glad.
Impulse.
Huh.
Happy pulse.
Yep.
Is in the amoeba, pushing its legs out and kind of surrounding something. And there's an amoeba dance.
Mm-hmm.
The slime mold is all these little particles of mold, and they come together into a slime, and then the slime sort of slithers like this, and then at a certain point it explodes into all the little things, and that's the common glad impulse of the slime mold. If the slime mold has a common glad impulse and the amoeba has it, what do humans have? Oh, they have music. They have, they have many ways of expressing common joy together. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they've talked themselves out of it. Maybe they've thought themselves too much into, well, that doesn't agree with so-and-so's theory of the sonata form. I'm not sure, the common glad impulse is about as nice as it gets in terms of it's how the world works. It's how the universe works. It's how mammals become their respective adults.
So let's suppose that a child's common glad impulse has been squashed by society.
Yeah.
What do we do with those adults?
Well,
I'm one of those adults. How do I find my common glad impulse again, Charlie?
How do we reignite that?
You
spark?
collaborate. You recognize that your species being is not Homo sap, all the same knowing knowers. We are each one different. And you got to find somebody else who is different from you in a complementary way to play with. Bassists are looking for drummers. Drummers are looking for bassists. Swallow and I had a lot of good conversations when we were 19 and 18. I was 19 and he was 18, and I was learning how to play drums and he was learning how to play bass, and we'd talk. What is it that, how can we get better at grooving? How can we get better at making this swing thing happen? It was a quest back then, and I didn't, in the trio that was here, I didn't feel the quest for how do we make each particular song get a great feel to it. It seemed like Previtt was supplying the rhythm. Steve was just, picking notes very carefully to have best possible bass line. And the piano player was, improvising in an easy, gentle way, and yet there was some missing intent to groove together. That wasn't their intention. Their intention was to make this as pretty as possible, or as, they were striving for a good effect, but it didn't have much to do with grooving. And to me, I was kind of disappointed. I said, wait a minute, Steve could really lay down a nice, solid bass, walking bass, and I could relate to that, try to put a cymbal tap to it. And we were pretty good together. I don't know, maybe that's disappeared from the minds of seasoned professionals. They're not looking to create the best possible groove in the moment. It's just not a goal. You know what I mean? When the kid asks Stockhausen, aren't these sounds alienating? And then you do them aleatorially, and that makes it even more alienating. How can this possibly be art? You obviously
How
don't.
could it be art?
Yeah, and it was, this was something that Jonny sent to me, and I've been thinking about it ever since. The kid is right. The sounds are alienating, and the aleatory thing makes it even more alienating. And his only answer is, you're not as smart as I am, or I'm an Ubermensch, and you're a little bit retarded. That was his answer, finally. Oh, you know what the best thing is in that Stockhausen thing? That he recognizes the relentless chopping up of the world for food, and that humans are going to eat us out of house and home, and that we're going to wind up eating algae and so on because we run out of other animals to eat, or other plants, or, he had this vision of the end time being no more food possible because we've extinguished the speciation, and we're down to us and algae.
You agree with him on that?
No, I'm just scared. He was smart to have that vision.
So music should be inviting and inclusive and accessible and able to be shared.
Yeah.
Rather than high art.
Yeah, high
skill
art.
Sets.
I just read something that I wrote back in the 1980s when I was at my nastiest Marxist anti-owning class head. And it was, we don't need art. We certainly don't need aesthetics, ideas about art. We just need to create, just make what feels good in the moment. For whatever reasons it feels good, follow that feel-good feeling, follow the groove, can you get a tone on your instrument that everybody says, oh, that's Jonny G. He's been in that thing this way. How does he do that? If you have your own way of doing something and you can combine it with a few other people in a trio, a quartet, beyond a quartet, somebody's standing there waiting to take a solo in jazz. You know what I mean? Can he pick up a tambourine? Can he help the groove? Quartet, trio.
That's very interesting you say that. It makes me think of the book Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari.
That's a recent book, right? That just came out?
Maybe sometime between 10 and 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But in that, he talks about the size of chimpanzee groups are about 50 individuals.
Wow.
And their primary form of bonding is grooming.
Yep.
So one animal grooming one animal.
Mm-hmm.
Humans' primary form of bonding is talking.
Yeah.
And if you observe human groups, They typically are, I think they calculated an average, at least in indigenous societies, but I think across groups, it's something like 3.7 individuals.
Yep.
So a group of 4 people can maintain a conversation. When you hit 5 people, that will split into 2 conversations. It will split into a conversation of 2 and conversation of 3 in a very short amount of time. And then it'll change, and then it'll be a different 3 people. But it's interesting you say that about music, because it's talking. Music is talking too, in a sense.
Interactive.
And
you know, Shamu came with his trumpet, came to the peace demo where Angie and I she's been playing the Tibetan cymbals, just pinging along with my foot tambourine. And we created a little texture and a little time there. And then I've got the clanker where I'm trying to be merciless on the 2 and 4 or on a
the
salsa.
clanker, what do you mean?
It's a piece of metal.
I told you about it last night. It's a foot pedal with a
foot pedal on
metal.
a piece of brake drum.
Primitive hi-hat.
I'm just advocating for the listener.
Yeah. It's something that Peter Pierce made for me. He said, "You're going to like this, Charlie." And I clank. You know, it makes it's a high frequency, and with a sousaphone and a tambourine on my right foot and a clink on the left, I can both have the high frequency frame of reference time-wise and a kind of sluggish sousaphone lays behind that.
You're a one-man band in a band.
Well, a one-man rhythm section. And a little help with Angie with the pinging.
So you're at the
cymbal.
peace demo. You're at the peace demo.
Yeah. Shamu comes, and just his adding a little melody, even if it just doubled the bass line, anything that he did was kind of magical.
And trumpet.
Yeah, because we were needing that third person who was just free to float or to get with the groove, or he added all that. Boy, 3 people is much better than 2, especially when Angie's not quite on the time consistently. But it was wonderful.
All right. Don't you feel alone? Time to unplug, put down the phone. Isolation across the nation. What we need is participation. You gotta know yourself, don't ask anybody else. You gotta blaze your trail, 'cause that's true wealth. You gotta know yourself, don't ask anybody else. You gotta blaze your trail, self-direction is true wealth. It's time to connect with ancient ways. These rhythms are rich, yeah, in our DNA. If you can walk, you can dance. If you can talk, let me hear you chant.